Welcome back to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. I feel like I've got to welcome myself back to the show. It's been so long. If you've been watching these episodes as we release them, then you'll have noticed there was an over 10-day gap between the last video and this video. That's because we went on vacation, we had a great break at the beach, but we're back, we're in the basement, and we're ready to play more games. And while we were away, we were playing games. We took Flash Duel with us. Everything you need to play the full mode of this game comes in this little box, and that's what we did. We took this with us. We were able to play this game in the airplane on the little tray. I've got a picture of it here. I'll show you. There we are. That's me playing and losing to Christy. And instead of having the wooden pegs that you use as your little fighters, we just use coins. Actually, we stored it in the very top of the box. If you look here, there we go. Couple of coins that we use. So very portable game, like I said. We're going to continue looking at Flash Duel in this episode. Now there are 7 modes that come in this game, and we're going to be covering 3 more of them in this episode. This is going to be a thinky episode. We're not actually going to play anything. We're going to try to keep it short and show you quickly 3 more modes, and then at the end of this episode we're going to have an important decision that we need you guys to help us make. We'll talk more about that at the end. And then at the beginning of the very next episode, we're going to launch right into playing one of those modes that we're covering in this episode. So stick with us, put your thinking caps on. We're going to show you 3 more modes. Let's get on the table and take a look. In the full mode, we introduced the idea that each of the players picks one of the 20 different characters that come in the game, and then you get the 3 ability cards that go with the character you chose, and you use those special abilities to give you an advantage during your duels. Now in the next mode, which is called Custom Clockwork Mode, we're going to mix things up even more. You take all of the 60 character cards and their abilities, and you give them a good shuffle. You mix them all up together, and then you draw out 12 cards like this. And then from these 12 randomly chosen ability cards, you and your opponent are going to be putting together your own unique fighter to face off against one another. Now, one of the biggest differences is that your new fighter will actually have 4 of the ability cards, whereas normally you would just have 3. So to begin, what you do is you have to flip a coin. So whoever wins the flip, they're going to look at all the cards and pick the one that they want to start with as their first ability. So let's say player 1 chose this ability here. Then player 2, because they're at a bit of a disadvantage because they didn't get to choose first, they get to pick 2 of the cards. So let's say they chose these 2 here. Then it would go back to player 1 who would pick 2 more cards, and then it would go back to player 2 who would pick 2 more cards, and then it would go back to player 1 who would pick their final card, like so. Now these other cards, we don't get rid of them, we keep them, but they don't go in with the fighters. We just put them to the side. And now the game is played exactly like in the full mode. Each player is able to use 1 ability per turn, and then at the end of each round, they get to refresh all of their abilities before they head into the next duel. Now, the only other difference is that if you lose a duel, then you're allowed to swap out one of your cards for one of the 4 cards that were not chosen. The winner has to keep their own clockwork soldier and use that one for the next battle, but the person who lost gets to make at least 1 adjustment if they want to. And then, as usual, the first player to win 3 rounds wins the game. So that's the custom clockwork mode. As you can see, it just opens the game up to a whole bunch of more variety in which you can combine different kinds of cards that you would normally see together in the full mode. Now the next thing that you can play is the solo mode. That's right, you can play this game by yourself. So you can't find someone to compete against, or maybe you're tired of losing and having to admit it. Now you can lose privately. So in the solo game, you have 3 different options. You can play against what they call as the dummy, you can play against Garrus Rook, or you can play against the Death Strike Dragon. The setup for the solo mode is very similar to the full mode. You have your dueling area, you have your piece, you have your opponent's piece, which is also going to be played by you. And because you have to play both sides, you may as well just lay out your own cards. You get 5 cards as usual. And then your opponent also gets 5 cards, which you're going to have to play. So it's all right to keep those face up as well. Now, the easiest way to beat the solo mode is to play against the dummy. And some people would say anytime you're playing by yourself, you're playing with a dummy. But those people are mean. Don't play with those people. Instead, in this situation, you're going to be playing where you get to pick the character you want to play and the 3 ability cards that go with it. But the dummy is called the dummy because the dummy gets no ability cards to play with. Now, the game is played exactly the same as in the full mode, except on your opponent's turn, the opponent draws a card at the beginning of its turn, and then plays. And you decide what the opponent does based on a guideline given to you in the rules. Basically, it says on the opponent's turn, you pick one of these 4 options. And then when it's your turn and you're attacking your opponent and your opponent's on the defense, you get one of 2 different choices to pick and how the opponent will respond. So you just follow those guidelines until somebody has won a round. Now, we don't want the dummy to be at too much of a disadvantage, so you'll notice as you read through the different options for what the dummy can do on his or her turn, there are actually some bonus things in here that you wouldn't normally be able to do. For example, if you dashing strike or attack your dummy opponent, that dummy opponent gets to draw a card first before declaring blocks and things like that. So in that way, the dummy, the bot as they call it in the instructions, gets a few added benefits to help balance out the gameplay. But if you've already beaten the dummy a few times and you'd like something a little more challenging, then you can move on to taking on Garrus Rook, which is one of the characters in the game. You get the Garrus Rook ability cards out, and now your bot is going to have these abilities to use while you're fighting. Once you've gotten past that challenge, then it's time to take on the Death Strike Dragon. And that gets this really cool bigger peg here, which you can use. And now you don't use these abilities, but there are 3 abilities listed in the rules. Deep Breath, Perfect Counter, and Black Diamond Hide, which you can see here. And the dragon gets to use these abilities during its attacks against you. Also, the dragon requires 2 hits in order to be defeated, so that definitely makes it more challenging. Now, a neat thing they've included in the instructions as a way to sort of keep track of your progress in the solo mode are these achievements you can collect. This is sort of like you might collect in a video game. Depending on how you play and what things you're able to accomplish in the solo mode, you collect points for the different achievements. So, for example, the very first one says, the Initiation Achievement. Win a round against the training dummy without using any abilities. All the way down to things like Sad Dragon. Win games against the Dragon Bot with 3 different characters. Or go for the Master Flash Dueler at 50 points. Beat the Dragon Bot with all 20 characters. So it's just a way to challenge you and give you a bit of a framework when you're playing that solo mode. Alright, now it's time to look at the last mode we're going to cover in this video. Team Battle! Alright, in Team Battle, you and a partner are going to team up against 2 other opponents. So this is great when you have 4 players. What happens is the first team, one of the players is going to pick one of the character ability cards, and then someone from the other team will go through the remaining character cards and pick whichever character they want to be. Then it goes back to the first team, and they pick another character for the other player on the team, and you guessed it, the last player on the remaining team then picks which character they want to be and collects the ability cards for that character. Now, as usual, you'll take your 25 numbered cards, but now you're also going to be going back to the Flash Duel box because another 25 of the same cards have been included. You're going to combine those 2 decks together and then shuffle them all up. So now you're going to be playing the game with 50 cards instead of the original 25. And then this deck will just be put to the side, and now each player is going to be drawing their starting hand of 5 cards. And like the other modes, to see who goes first, you flip a coin. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the other modes that also applies in this mode is that after that first round, when someone's won, they've collected a token, and you're getting ready to set up for the next match, you want to keep in mind that the loser gets to decide who goes first at the beginning of the next round. So it's not as good as winning a coin, but it does give the loser an advantage as they go into the next match. Just like the other modes, you win once your team has collected 3 tokens from winning 3 rounds in the game. Next, let's look at the turn order. Let's say this team was going first. One of the players would choose to go first, and then it would go over to the next team, and one of those players would go next. Then it would go back to the first team, and then whoever hadn't played, they would go. It would go back to the second team, and whoever hadn't played yet would then go. And that's the order you'd maintain throughout that match. Now, if you start a second match, the teams can choose differently which one of the players on that team is going to go first. But once you've established the first 4-turn order, that's what you have to maintain throughout that duel. There are also a couple of other changes to how the game is played when you're playing in the team battle mode. One of them is that you are able to block or retreat while you're recovering. So let's say someone had dashed and striked you, and that forced you to retreat, and then one of your opponents had also come up here and dashing strike you again. You're in recovery mode right now because you're recovering from this particular attack here. However, you can still retreat or block even though you're in recovery mode. And also keep in mind, if you were forced to retreat twice, so you've retreated once against this attack, and then this guy comes up and dashing strikes you, and you have to retreat again. When it comes around to your turn, you only have to recover once. You don't have to recover for 2 turns before you're able to get back into the fight. Another great thing is you can talk as much as you want to your teammate. You can show each other your cards, discuss it. Keep in mind, of course, that what you're discussing, your opponents will be able to hear as well. Also, keep in mind the position of the pieces on the board. You can never move past the frontmost piece of the other team. So in this case, if green wanted to move this way, they would have to stop on this space here. Even though there's a piece farther back, this piece can never advance past the frontmost piece of the other team. Now let's say you as a player get defeated. Let's say yellow played 4 ones and you didn't have any ones to block with. In that case, you've been defeated and you are removed from the game, but you haven't lost as a team yet. There's always a chance that your remaining teammate will defeat or advance farther than the other team, in which case, as a team, you'll win even though you as a player left the game. Also, you have to think about how you take up space in the game. Any 2 players on the same team can be on the same space. Now, this is interesting because if an opponent was to attack both of these characters that are on the same space, say this player here played 2 2s, each individual player would then have to respond to that. So both of them would have to be able to block with 2 2s. Likewise, if someone was to dash up and do a dashing strike against these 2 players, they'd each have to decide, are they going to block or are they going to retreat? And each would have to play their own cards separately to do that. And you're able to push multiple opponents that are on an adjacent space. So if I was here, I could push both of these opponents. Once the last card has been drawn from the draw pile, you then go into the time over mode as usual. All of the players reveal their hands and see if they have any cards in their hands that would work as attacks, not dashing strikes, but as direct attacks against their opponent. And if you happen to have more potential direct attacks against an opponent than that opponent has against you, you might be able to remove one or both of your opponent's pieces from the game. Then, after that's resolved, if as a team you have at least one of your pieces on the board and none of the opponent's pieces are on the board, you win that round, you would collect a coin. Or if you have 2 of your members on the board and only one of the opponent's members on the board, you would also win a token. However, if you end the game with exactly the same number of pieces per team, then you would look at which team has advanced farthest along the board. And as usual, whoever's advanced farthest from their start space, they win the game. Now, if after last hits all 4 players are defeated, the round ends in a draw. Now that's all the rules for the team battle, except for one very important one that I've saved till the end. In the team battle mode, you now can take advantage of a new move called the dashing block. So to show you how a dashing block works, I've set up the board like so. Let's say an opponent was getting ready to attack you here, so they played 4 2s. Now here's a problem. You've looked in your hand, you've said, hey, teammate, all I've got is 2 2s. And your teammate's like, don't sweat it. I've also got 2 2s. But then you're like, but you're way back here, and I'm way up here. You can't help me. And then your teammate says, didn't you watch it played? I can use a dashing block. So if one of your teammates that's ahead of you is in trouble and needs your help, you can do the dashing block by playing a card that would allow you to move to the same space as your teammate, and then you can also play cards from your hand that would add to that block. So in this case, between the 2 of you, you are now able to create the 4 2s that are required to block these 4 attacking 2s. Keep in mind, when you play that card to dash forward, it has to be forward. You can never dash backwards to help save someone who's being attacked. Okay, so thank you for sitting through a very rulesy kind of episode. At the beginning of the next episode, I promise we're going to be getting right into gameplay. We're going to do that team battle mode. Now, normally we only have at most 3 players sitting at this table, along with all of you. This time we're going to have to fit a 4th here. I'm not even sure who that 4th is going to be, honestly. I'm going to have to figure that out between now and the next episode. But I need you guys to do something for me. Me and Luke are going to be teaming up. I'm going to be using Jefferson DeGray again. He's going to be using Vendetta like we did in the full mode video playthrough that we did. We have to pick 2 other characters to play with, and we want you guys to help us choose. Now on our Indiegogo fundraiser page right now, we have a perk level for the Playmakers. Normally in our series, we invite all of you to make decisions about what to do in our next videos, and then we'll take the most popular decision usually and go with that. The Playmakers have the special ability that they get to make a single decision all on their own. So I'm going to be sending an email out to all of the Playmakers, and whichever one of you writes back first, we're going to go with that choice. And what I'm asking you to choose is which one of the Flash Duel characters from this set do you want one of our opponents on the opposing team to use during our team battle mode game. Now for the rest of you, even those of you who are not Playmakers, people who are just watching the show, we're going to let you guys vote as well. So down below in the YouTube comments section, post the other character that you think the other opponent on the other team should use. Now, if you don't know what all the different characters are and what their abilities are, don't worry about it. I'm going to put a link right here and down here where you can go to the Flash Duel site and you can see all of the cards that come in this game and all of the abilities. Look them over, see which one you think might be cool or fun to see played in the next video. Whichever one gets the most votes, that's the one we'll use. Unless our Playmaker also chose that one, in which case we'll look at whichever one got the second most votes, and that's the one we'll use. Okay, I hope that's clear. I'm still adjusting to being back in reality from vacation. I know, poor me. But anyway, listen, it is great to be back. I'm loving being able to make these videos again. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you real soon in the next episode. Thanks for watching.